Before I worked on saddling Aero, I played around again with catching her and letting her go and catching her and letting her go, where I'd go up, kind of put the halter on, walk away, walk back to her, and put it on again, just so she gets used to being caught. I did this a bunch of times, had no issues with it, didn't have to rope her again. She didn't ever really try getting away, and she did pretty good with it. Here I started with a saddle pad, just getting her desensitized to it a bit, waving it around, putting it on her, and then I put the second saddle pad on her. To teach your horse to think before they react, you want to keep the pressure on as long as they're reacting, and then when they stop and think, take the pressure off. And here I introduced the saddle. I started by letting her just sniff it, and then just kind of shook it around her, because this is the motion she'd see before I throw it on her back. I worked my way closer to her and up alongside her as if I was going to throw it on. And then eventually I did try tossing it on. And she kind of reacted. I didn't get it quite on. Figured that it was maybe because she saw it in her opposite eye. So I worked a little more on the other side, just getting her familiar with the saddle. Once I felt she was comfortable with it on the other side, I went back to tossing it on. And just fake tossing it, getting her used to the flapping and movement of it. And then here I went to toss it on. She moved away and reacted, and it all came off, which is no big deal. We just started over again. Started with the saddle pads. She was a little sensitive after that. But we got her comfortable with them again, threw the saddle pads on, and then went back to the saddle. This time when I tossed the saddle on, I was able to kind of hold it there, even though she sort of moved away, get it all set up and flat. We ended up out of the camera frame while I did up all the cinches and breast collar, but there was no real issues with that at all. Here I'm tying on my shaps so that she can get used to that movement and then flapping around when she moves. You can see I also have my rope tied on my saddle at the start. I want my horses to get used to everything right off the start. When I ride them, this is what I'm going to ride them with, and I don't want to have to be tiptoeing around or worrying about them spooking at my shaps, flapping, or the rope, or anything. I gently ask her to start moving around and get used to it. She did really good at a walk, didn't react to it at all. And then once she got around here, she must have kind of felt it, because then she blew at it a little bit and hogged around. I got out of the pen, just let her sort herself out, take as much time as she needs to get herself figured out. She only went bucking 3 rounds of the round pen before she settled into a nice lope. Once Aero got her poop in a group, I came back in and just asked her to walk, trot, and lope each way. When I'm asking her to go, I just put the pressure on, and then as soon as she goes, I kind of take the pressure off or maintain it, and that's her release. She did really well with this and walked, trot, and loped each way without any issues. After her initial reaction, she didn't really seem bothered by the saddle or shaps or anything. Once we worked up to a lope and there was no reaction, I took the pressure off and then walked up to her and gave her a pet and a little break. And after she let me work my way up to her, we just switched direction and did the same thing going the other way. Here we're finishing up and I'm gonna start unsaddling her. When I went to pull my straps off, she reacted a little bit, so we just paused there and started working our way through that. I just pulled them off, threw them back on a bunch of times. Again, when she doesn't react, you take the pressure off, and as long as she does react, you kind of keep the pressure on, and this teaches them to think a little bit. Here she pulled away, which again is fine. The straps were still hanging off of her. I went to go grab the lead rope. I should mention that this is exactly why I don't tie my horses when I saddle and unsaddle them. I want them to be able to move away. I don't want them to be forced into it. I want them to stand there because they trust me and we worked through with everything. Here when I picked up the lead rope, I had some luck on my side and it was actually hooked under the stirrup and the shaft. So when I jiggled the lead rope, it both pulled her head towards it and shook the shafts, which was just a bonus and helping desensitize her to them. And we just continued to work through this, flapping them around, sliding them around, throwing them on and off until she eventually didn't react to them anymore. Once there's no more reaction to the shafts coming on and off, I was finally able to unsaddle her, which went smooth as silk. This is how Aero's first day with a saddle on went.